The accounting firm of Haynes, Eisenbarger, and Skia presents the 28th College Football Hall of Fame season of Fighting Irish Preview. And now, your host, Phil Houck.
Fighting Irish Preview's national championship game coverage is made possible by the support of Yuengling Brewery and our friends at 5 Star Distributing. At the start of the college football season, 134 FBS teams took the field with a shot at glory. Notre Dame started with a big win over Texas A&M, but then fell to the depths 1 week later. And then Marcus Freeman really came of age as a football coach. He used the loss to Northern Illinois as a rallying cry for his team, and he stayed true to his choose hard mantra to steadily build a culture that now looks to be bulletproof. By winning 10 straight games, the Irish steered their way into the college football playoffs. 134 teams had become 12. On December 20th, the Irish dispatched their first-round opponent, IU, by a score of 27-17. Ho, ho, ho. Remember Christmas? Well, good for you, because I really don't. The whirlwind continued. Next, amidst adversity and tragedy in the New Orleans Sugar Bowl, but the Irish dispatched Blue Blood Georgia 23-10. And last week, the Irish punched their ticket to the final game by dispatching Penn State 27-24, a game won in cliffhanger fashion on a Mitch Jeter field goal at the 12-second mark of the fourth quarter. 134 became 12, and now 12 has become 2. This week, it is Notre Dame, Ohio State, and everything is on the line. Will the Irish avenge last year's loss in the closing seconds to the Buckeyes? And most importantly, will Notre Dame find a way to end a 36-year-long drought since its last national title? Holy Lou Holtz. And just as we have for the last 28 years, Fighting Irish Preview, in its final show of its 28th season, has you covered. Guadalupe's Mexican Grill, now with locations on Illinois, Leo, and DuPont Roads, in Georgetown Square, and in the Allen County Memorial Coliseum. Guadalupe's, food made fresh. Now, stay tuned for Fighting Irish Insight from America's foremost authority on Notre Dame football, Tim Priester, publisher of IrishIllustrated.com. Fighting Irish Preview is brought to you by the accounting firm of Haynes, Eisenbarger, and Skiba, Shear McCulloch Auctioneers, Notre Dame Federal Credit Union, where you bank does matter, and Flight by Yuengling, 2.6 grams of carbs and 95 calories. It's the next generation of light beer. This is a special national championship game edition of Fighting Irish Preview.
The University of Notre Dame exemplifies dedication to hard work, integrity, and personal values, which result in success in the classroom and on the football field. The professionals at Haynes, Eisenbarger, and Skiba, like Notre Dame, know the same dedication, and their experience and expertise provide peace of mind for you and your business. Tax planning, tax compliance, auditing, business valuation, and estate planning, the full-service accounting firm of Haynes, Eisenbarger, and Skiba, like the Irish, has what it takes to help you achieve success. Located in Fort Wayne near Jefferson Point, Haynes, Eisenbarger, and Skiba proudly supports Notre Dame football and congratulates all those who are a part of the greatest tradition in all of sports. Go Irish!
Flight by Yuengling. It's the next generation of light beer. For those who don't follow trends, but craft them. Flight by Yuengling is 12 ounces of uncompromised refreshment from America's oldest brewery. With only 2.6 grams of carbs and 95 calories, this is premium refreshment 6 generations in the making. Don't just raise a glass, raise the bar. Flight by Yuengling. Available wherever beer is sold. DG Yuengling and Son Incorporated, Pottsville, Pennsylvania. Please enjoy responsibly.
Now back to Fighting Irish Preview with your host, Phil Houck.
Well, Tim Priester, we have been preparing for this moment for 29 seasons on the air, so let's choose hard. And nothing less than a national championship effort is acceptable for this show. Are we clear on the mission?
Yes, sir.
Okay, let's go. Let's first talk the Orange Bowl, another great playoff win for the Irish over Penn State. Their second major bowl win this season. for the Irish. Tim, when the Irish fell behind 10-0 for the first time, and that's the first time this season they've trailed by double digits, first time since last year's I think it was Clemson last season. 3 offensive players had dropped like flies in that second quarter, 10-0. Did you think this one was going to be over for the Irish?
Yeah, I thought the season was going to be over by the end of the second half, absolutely, because the 15-play, 90-yard, 7.5-minute drive by Penn State made Notre Dame look like they were out of gas and that they wouldn't be able to push forward. And I guess you could say Notre Dame kind of caught a break when Riley Leonard got shaken up, and they put Steve Angeli in to finish the half, and he led them down to a field goal. And it was a bit miraculous that they were down by 1 score at halftime because Penn State was running the football. But in the second half, typical Marcus Freeman motivation at halftime, and Notre Dame scores 24 points in the second half. They can suddenly run the football and get in the end zone. Penn State rallied a little bit on their own with back-to-back touchdown drives, but ultimately Notre Dame scored the last 10 points, and Mitch Jeter is locked in, dialed in at the right time with his game-winning field goal with 7 seconds remaining.
Yeah, it really turned into a great prize fight in that second half. But we had the same, and I talked at halftime, we had the same feeling, but we both mentioned at halftime the importance of what Steve Angeli did, and let's give him a little bit of love. He only played 9 plays, but what that guy accomplished was really critical to giving the Irish, something to talk about at halftime. Completed 6 of 7, got the Irish into that field goal range. Did you think, like me, that maybe the Irish might continue with Steve Angeli? Because I don't think Penn State was prepared for that sort of a passing attack.
Yeah, I thought so. I mean, at that point, we didn't know about the health of Riley Leonard, and certainly Angeli had sparked them. I don't know, I know like Notre Dame fans look at what Angeli does in relief, and I don't know that it's, and this is why Notre Dame chose to stay with Riley Leonard early in the season. I'm not sure that style of attack is sustainable. Because it's just catch and throw, 6 yards, 7 yards at a time without the running threat that Riley Leonard presents. But I mean, God bless Steve Angeli. He gave them the spark that they needed, ice water in his veins, as they say. He came in and did exactly what he had to do. And then when Leonard, passed concussion protocol, it was an easy decision for Notre Dame, and Leonard played much better in the second half.
Yeah, he certainly did. And somebody else that really came to play in that second half, Jeremiah Love. Only 45 yards on 11 carries, but Tim, it was one of the gutsiest performances I think we've seen out of a Notre Dame back, maybe ever. If the Irish find a way to pull his championship off, I think that 2-yard touchdown run will be remembered forever. It may be remembered forever anyway. It was just that incredible. Tim, you came out this week and called Love the greatest running back in Notre Dame history. And with all due respect to George Gipp, who we will talk about later, explain why you think he is now the greatest. And I support that. And who would be number 2 on your list? I'm just curious.
Well, George Gipp, of course.
Okay.
Well, when I say that, what I really mean, and I've clarified, he's the most complete back in Notre Dame history. The ability to snap off 98-yard runs and not let anybody catch him, and then the physicality part of his game. And he's an outstanding blocker, and he catches the football, and he just does all the things, all the components of the running back position that you're looking for. So, I number 2, I'm actually not even going to suggest anybody, because I don't spend a lot of time thinking about that. But I did think, and you were the one that asked me in the middle of the season if he was better than Kyron Williams, and I wasn't even ready to do that yet. But he's great. Notre Dame has him for another year. They have him for one more game in this season, and he's lining himself up for a high draft pick, at least as high as running backs go in the draft in 2026. Just a spectacular, dedicated, courageous football player.
So let's talk more about the running game, Tim. Jadarian Price, 7 carries, just 13 yards. But Aeneas Williams has played really well during these playoffs. And he caught 5 passes for 66 yards. He only had 2 carries, but he did go for 17 on those 2. Is Aeneas Williams now the number 2 option behind Love? Should he be?
I don't know. It's close. I mean, Jadarian Price is still, when he's good, he's great, but there's too many lost yardage plays, and that's been an issue all year. Aeneas Williams, I'm not sure Notre Dame beats Penn State without Aeneas Williams. So I don't know that we need to decide who's 1 or 2 or 3. We know 1 is, but I don't know that we need to decide. I think both guys are going to play in relief of Jeremiah Love against Ohio State. I wouldn't give up on Jadarian Price because he does have the ability to break a long run, and so you don't change all that based upon one game. But Aeneas Williams needs to play a significant role in this game as well because he's such a threat catching the football out of the backfield. His pad level is exceptional when he carries it, and he's an outstanding blocker. So Notre Dame has 3 running backs. And there are times where, they should go with Aeneas Williams over Jadarian Price at times.
Yeah, and all I can say is the Irish are loaded at running back, and so it's a good problem to have. Tim, before we put the Penn State victory to bed, one last one. And James Rendell, 24 punts this season inside the 20, 0 touchbacks. He has become a weapon. He's getting better. This just came up in my mind. Please confirm for us that he does have another year of eligibility. Is that correct?
He does. Yes. It isn't anything that Notre Dame's talked a whole lot about. But yes, now I tell you what, that streak of no touchbacks was in jeopardy when he punted one to the 2-yard line. Unfortunately for him and Notre Dame, Zion Tracy from Penn State called a fair catch at the 2-yard line, which he should never do. But no, he's been good, and it takes a long time for people, followers of the American game, to appreciate the fact that they just don't return punts against Rendell, and a lot of it is because many times it hits the ground and it bounces, and it always bounces forward, and so at the end of the day, it's all about net yardage, and he's really good at net yardage. His numbers don't necessarily reflect that because he's kicked some short ones, but he's very difficult to return. And ultimately that's the job of the punter, is don't let them return the football. And if you kick something in the low 40s, which is what he's been, and he's capable of being more than that, and you can't return it, then he's done his job. And he's done his job a little bit unorthodox way many times this year, but he's been good. You can't return the ball against him, and he doesn't kick the ball in the end zone.
Well, unorthodox is what an Aussie punter is supposed to be all about, and now I can see why before the season, back in May, actually, Marcus Freeman told me that he has always wanted an Aussie punter, and I'm now gaining an appreciation for that. Tim, let's move on a little bit to this week because there's something big going on. Key loss for the Irish at left tackle in freshman Anthony Knapp. Fortunately, the Irish have some options. What do you believe the plan will be at left tackle?
I think they'll move Charles Jagusa from right guard to left tackle and start him there. It sounds like Rocco Spindler will be ready to go, and they will start him back at right guard. And then your options from there, if Spindler were to be re-injured, which is a good possibility because he's hobbling in most games, then they either go with Sam Pendleton or they move Jagusa back to right guard and put Tosh Baker in. I think they would go to Pendleton who was a starter for a good portion of the season. I think they'll go with Pendleton at right guard if Spindler can't go, and likely stick with Jagusa at left tackle because there's some menacing defensive ends coming off the edge for Ohio State.
There are, and we're going to talk about them in a couple minutes now. And fortunately, the Irish do have some options there at left tackle, and Tosh Baker certainly performed admirably last week against Penn State. Okay, Tim, a couple of quick hits here, and I want to do these in true or false questions, but you can give me a short explanation for your reason for your true or false answer. Number one, from a media perspective, this has been by far the most challenging season to cover ever. True or false?
150% true.
Okay. And I don't even think you need to give any explanation. Actually, I thought about that. Covering losing seasons are hard. But good Lord, 16 games that we've covered.
Yeah. I'm talking about travel and the 30 hours it took for me to get home from Florida after the game. So, yeah. And I'm not getting any younger. So from a physically challenging standpoint, although I have not taken a hit yet this season, it's been challenging, but it's been awesome too.
It's awesome is the word. There's no question about that. Nobody's going to feel sorry for us, but it has been challenging. All right, one more true or false. No matter what happens in the game, this team from this season will go down as the greatest Notre Dame team since at least 1988. True or false?
I think it's true. I don't want to concede the final game, and it's true. But let's see if they can finish off the mission.
Yeah, okay. The 89 teams and 93 teams were great teams, but winning 14 games and let's hope for 15 is an incredible accomplishment in the fashion it was done. And another one, we're just going to handle this as a quick hit, but no true or false. Tim, what is Ohio State's biggest weakness? And I know that's relative because there really aren't any weaknesses, but what would you say their biggest weakness is?
I think teams have made inroads against their offensive line, and Notre Dame is a prime candidate to do so. I mean, Penn State held them to 20 points. Michigan held them to 10. Nebraska gave them a struggle. There are inroads, a term that I use a lot, but there are inroads to be made against their offensive line if Notre Dame can just win that battle up front.
Yeah, and I think the way you will do that is to force the quarterback. We got to get an interception. We got to get some turnovers. We got to get some sacks. And I also think the Irish maybe have a little bit of an advantage here on special teams. So let's look for that too. Tim, a quick hit, and then we're going to get around to the fun question of the week. I suspect you were not surprised to learn the news this week that Tommy Rees is now the offensive coordinator of the Cleveland Browns.
No, we were tipped off. Well, first I was tipped off that if Mike Vrabel got the Patriots job, that Tommy Rees would be his offensive coordinator. But of course, Rees was with the Cleveland Browns this season as the tight ends coach after Nick Saban retired and Rees left Alabama. But he is, and not surprised. I know there are a lot of Notre Dame fans that didn't appreciate or care for the work that he did at Notre Dame. But the fact of the matter is he's got a very special gift and sense of offensive football, having grown up in the game, his dad being a coach. And so, yeah, Tommy Rees has parlayed his opportunity to be the offensive coordinator at Notre Dame and then bouncing to Alabama to being a coordinator in the NFL, which is a tremendous accomplishment.
Yeah, well, we always knew that he had the NFL on his horizon. That's what he wanted. So, and he has gotten there. His father, Bill Rees, I believe, you said he was a coach, and we know that. I believe he was a coach at Cleveland too, so that also makes some sense. And he, like you said, Nick Saban, Brian Kelly, everybody recognized some genius in this kid, and I think he'll show it in the NFL. All right, Tim Priester, fun question of the week. Let me take you back to 1988, Tim. Tell us a story about what it was like winning a national championship, and go on a little bit and tell us what it's going to feel like when Notre Dame, and I'm being positive here, wins the national championship this week.
Yeah, I was 28, so I wasn't that much older than like the fifth-year seniors, so the Stams and Pritchett and Stonebreaker and those guys. I mean, it was really cool because they've become lifelong friends because of the relationship we developed as my career was just getting started. I felt like the Fiesta Bowl win over West Virginia was kind of anticlimactic because the real national title game for Notre Dame was going to USC and winning the 12th game of the regular season. So we knew West Virginia was great. Major Harris was quarterback, and we knew that they would challenge Notre Dame. But we also felt that Notre Dame would win that football game, and they ultimately did by double digits. But I can remember being on the field for the end of that game and to be just in my, sixth year on the job, for them to win a national title was awesome. And what will it feel like this time? I mean, it would be extremely emotional for me because of the journey of this team and having spent 43 years in this business. It's hard to imagine, but I sure want to.
Yeah, and it was pretty emotional after the Orange Bowl. I can only imagine what it will be like for this one. For me, after winning that Orange Bowl game, and by the way, you may or may not remember that I did give you a kiss on the side of the head, so I don't know if we want that reported, but it was a great moment. I was able to share it with a lot of people who I've known. We've worked towards this goal, and it's been a long wait for guys like you and me, and we got one more to go. Thanks, Tim. Coming up, it's the all-time Irish hero, key to an Irish victory, injury report, and the world-famous Irish Illustrated prediction. And during the break, it's the Fighting Irish Fact of the Week, brought to you by Ron Wise and the Wise Insurance Agency. This is the 413th edition of Fighting Irish Preview.
This is Art Salzberg. I don't speak for a lot of companies, but Shearer McCulloch is a firm that provides a great and much-needed service. As Sharon and I get older, we've been thinking of moving, but frankly, the thought is somewhat overwhelming. That's where Shearer McCulloch comes in with a full-service plan that takes the pressure off. Listen to this. Shearer McCulloch will sell your house, auction the items you don't want to take, then pack everything else and move you. In sports terms, that's a blowout win. Shearer McCulloch uses an international auction platform to make sure your possessions are seen by the right buyers. They'll get top dollar for your special treasures. Shearer McCulloch is highly recommended by leading retirement communities and law firms, plus they're AAA with the Better Business Bureau. Call them at 441-8636. That's 441-8636. They'll make your moving experience easy and profitable. Shearer McCulloch.
The Fighting Irish Fact of the Week is brought to you by our friends at the Wise Insurance Agency. Marcus Freeman now has 14 wins over ranked teams, 4 more than any other coach in their first 3 seasons in Notre Dame history. Call Ron Wise at the Wise Insurance Agency or go to thewiseinsuranceagency.com and get an auto or home quote in less than 5 minutes.
Over the last 190 years, a lot has changed.
But at Yuengling, America's oldest brewery, we're still focused on one thing: brewing darn good beer.
Yuengling, the oldest brewery in America.
Now back to Fighting Irish Preview with your host, Phil Houck.
This is Fighting Irish Preview. The Irish take on Ohio State Monday night. That's Inauguration Day. That is MLK Day. What a day for the college football playoff finale. TV coverage on ESPN starts at 7:30 p.m. South Bend time. And it's now time for the all-time Irish hero, brought to you by the Marina at Lake Gage. Chris Craft, Mastercraft, Vanderbilt, and Premier Pontoons. New and previously owned, we share your boating passion. And today we are featuring an Irish legend who'd appreciate what is happening here more than anyone, and that is George Gipp. The Gipper was a free-spirited, multi-talented athlete who became a legend. Born in 1895 in the UP of Michigan, Gipp excelled in basketball and baseball before being discovered by Notre Dame's Knute Rockne, who saw his extraordinary football potential. Gipp joined the team and was a very versatile player. Running, passing, tackling, kicking, you name it, Gipp could do it exceptionally well. Absolutely dominant on offense and defense. He led the Irish in rushing, passing, and scoring each year from 1918 to 1920. Despite his athletic skills, Gipp's life was marked by defiance of authority, academic struggles, and an unconventional lifestyle. He earned money, apparently lots of it, by playing billiards and poker, because he was very good at both of them. But his football achievements, including a school record 8.1 yards per carry in 1920, solidified his place in history. Unfortunately, illness cut his career and life short. George Gipp died at the age of just 25 from a throat infection, inspiring the famous "Win One for the Gipper" legend. Supremely talented athletically, but personally enigmatic, Gipp's legacy endures as one of the greatest players in college football history.
Well, Phil, his numbers, indicate his greatness, and we know how Rockne felt about him. So, although I never got a chance to see him play, obviously, in person, he was spectacular. But who better to speak about George Gipp's greatness than one Mr. Phil Houck?
Well, Tim, you and I have both been around a long time, but of course, no, we didn't know George Gipp. But I do feel a little bit of a kinship with Gipp. I wrote about him extensively a couple of years ago. What a fascinating character and just an incredible athlete who I think would have been, if you look at his physical talents and skills, I did a story on this a few years ago. He probably would have been really good even in the game today. He just was a large man with great speed and just great instincts, and lived a beyond fascinating life. George Gipp, another Marina at Lake Gage all-time Irish hero. The Marina at Lake Gage, we love boats. And it's now time for the Notre Dame Federal Credit Union key to an Irish victory. Ohio State is 13-2 with losses to Michigan by a score of 13-10. Oregon, 32-31 loss. In the college football playoff, they have dominated. First, Tennessee by a score of 42-17. They avenged their loss to Oregon, 41-21, and defeated Texas 28-14. With the Irish, they share wins over Purdue, who they defeated 45-0. Indiana, who they took out 38-15, and Penn State, who they were victors over during the regular season, 20-13. Now, motivated by that season-ending loss to Michigan, Ohio State's $20 million NIL roster features 14 five-stars to Notre Dame's 1. They boast the number 1 scoring and total defense, controlling the clock while scoring 35.8 points per game to Notre Dame's 37. Quarterback Will Howard, a Kansas State transfer, has 3,779 passing yards, 33 touchdowns, 10 interceptions, and 9 rushing TDs. Sensational freshman wide receiver Jeremiah Smith has 71 catches, 1,227 yards, and 14 TDs. With Carnell Tate and Emeka Ibuka as additional threats. Running backs Quinshawn Judkins and Travion Henderson are an explosive tandem and have combined for nearly 2,000 yards and 22 TDs. On defense, the Buckeyes are mostly a zone team against the pass, and their strength up front is as good as anyone's. Jack Sawyer and JT Tuimalala are bookend game records. They have combined for 20 sacks, contributing to the team's total of 51. That compares to just 38 as a team for the Irish. Ohio State is +4 in turnovers compared to Notre Dame's +17. And I'd say Notre Dame needs to win the turnover battle to have success in this game. Tim Priester, what is the Notre Dame Federal Credit Union key to an Irish victory?
I agree, Phil. Win the turnover battle, win the time of possession, which isn't something that we normally say, but I think that's important as well. But it just comes down to a basic tenet of football, and it has to be in place for Notre Dame to win this game. Notre Dame has to be able to run the football against Ohio State. If they don't, then I don't think they can win. I don't think they can throw the football. When I say run the football, I don't want to put a number on it, but it has to be strategic success. If you have a 3 and out and it's 3rd and 2 on your next series, that's a play that you have to turn into a first down. So find a way to run the football, however you do it, whether it's shovel passes, which is really an extension of the running game, end arounds, whatever. Put some pressure on that defense by running the football against a great defensive line.
Find a way to run the football, and that's going to allow you to control the clock a little bit, too. That is Tim Priester's Notre Dame Federal Credit Union key to an Irish victory. And Tim Priester, who is this week's Notre Dame Federal Credit Union key Irish player for the Irish in the national championship game?
I think the smart thing for me to do in every game that he continues to play for Notre Dame is to pick him, Jeremiah Love. Jeremiah Love is the one, if Notre Dame is going to win this game and run the football, it has to be him behind what has become a bit of a patchwork offensive line.
Jay Love is your Notre Dame Federal Credit Union key Irish player this week. Notre Dame Federal Credit Union, where you bank does matter. And it's now time for the injury report, brought to you by Indiana Physical Therapy. Your choice for physical therapy now with 21 Indiana locations. Tim, injuries certainly have been perhaps the biggest story this season, short of Irish winning all these football games. So what's the latest on the injury situation?
Well, all the praise in the world for true freshman Anthony Knapp that started 15 straight games for Notre Dame at left tackle. When camp opened in August, he was the number 3 left tackle. I'm not even sure he was a tackle yet. He really projects to guard. But so Anthony Nappa's out with a high ankle sprain. Rocco Spindler, the right guard, continues to aggravate that right ankle injury, but he should start this game. And again, I think we mentioned this last week, but Cooper Flanagan being out at tight end with an Achilles is a significant loss for Notre Dame. But most of it is happening on the offensive line still for Notre Dame.
Well, let's hope they keep that offensive line patched up. Fortunately, they do have some experienced options there. Thanks, Tim. And that is the Indiana Physical Therapy Injury Report. And it's now time for the world-famous IrishIllustrated.com prediction, brought to you by SES Environmental. Need help navigating environmental risk and with regulatory compliance? You need SES. Look them up at sesadvantage.com. Tim Priester, Vegas says the Buckeyes by 8. That line opened at 9.5, by the way. So what does America's foremost authority say?
In some respects, Phil, the matchup with Ohio State, the one with Penn State was a little bit more difficult from the standpoint of the offensive line for Penn State is better than Ohio State. So that's where Notre Dame has to make inroads. We talked about running the football. You can't give up explosive plays to Smith and Ibuka and then Henderson. You can't fall behind like 10-0, 14-0, 10-0 like they did against Penn State. I would stop short of saying that Notre Dame has to be perfect or near perfect in this game because Ohio State has to contend with what Notre Dame can do. And Ohio State hasn't always been efficient offensively either. So many ways to look at this game. My job as a reporter is to be correct in my prediction. And I think I could very well be wrong in my prediction. I expect Notre Dame to seriously compete for victory. And maybe I'm saying this just so I don't jinx it, but I have Ohio State 24, Notre Dame 20.
Ohio State 24, Notre Dame 20. That is Tim Priester's world-famous IrishIllustrated.com prediction. Tim, admittedly, the point spread scares me. It tells me what most people think, but I can't pick against this team. Longtime listeners to this show will remember the judge's wish, which is how I used to make my quote-unquote predictions. Well, there's a little bit of that going on with this pick that I'm about to make, but I do think that Notre Dame can have a good day against Will Howard and make some big plays, sacks and interceptions. And I'm going to go with the intangibles, which I think favor the blue and gold. I'll take the Irish, Notre Dame 24, Ohio State 23. Well, folks, that's a wrap on our record-setting 18 shows in our 29th season. Thanks, Tim, and I will see you in Atlanta.
I'll be there, Phil.
Go Irish, and thanks for listening to Fighting Irish Preview. Special thanks to Jim Shovelin, Brett Rump, Art Salzberg, and studio producer Adam Schenkel. Fighting Irish Preview is the copyrighted property of Judge Phil Productions. For more Fighting Irish Preview, look us up at fightingirishpreview.com.
Podcasts by Federated Media.